Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer Information Systems at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And this video is part 17 of a continuing series, which we're making Boxxle and Sokoban, we're making in GameMaker Studio 2, and then we're porting it over, creating a game engine, and making the game on top of it inside of C++ with SFML library also included. So we've already made GameMaker 2 version 14 parts ago, and we just finished up the main gameplay portions for the C++ version, so now we're just kind of finishing up adding a few little extra bells and whistles and a few extra things to finish up everything all together, and then you have a basic engine with a game working on it now, and then now you just have to advance the engine for the things you need to do. You know, we haven't added certain aspects of the engine, of course. This is just a very simple engine just to make a simple game going, but you can see what's going on with all of that. So what are we making? What have we made twice over now? We've made the Boxxle game. The guy pushes the blocks through, pushes the blocks to the goals, and now we also can tell when the goals have boxes on them and we have a winning condition. Both games ran at 720p resolution. Both games run with 60 by 60 tiles. What are we doing in this video? This video is kind of like adding a little bell and whistle here to the graphical components of this. We're going to add a fade in effect to the room and a fade out effect to the room. So there's a little graphic that pops up. You know what fade in and fade out looks like. It's pretty much the simplest of all of the special effects you can add. And then while we do this, I learned, since I did this ahead of time, that there is a fundamental flaw in the step event of the room, and we'll discuss how. And so, we'll fix it up just for what is that function called? Instance create function. The fix will have fixes that, but in the future, if we ever actually, and we would want to do this for real, is to have an instance destroy function. The fix we're going to fix today is just a simple kind of a Bandaid approach. But Band-Aids are great for today just to kind of get through the step. I'll discuss what we would have to do, but I'm not going to go ahead and do it. So that's where we're going today. So to make the fade in, fade out effect work, I need one tiny little graphic, literally tiny. It's a 1 by 1 pixel black image, black pixel. And so I called it _1 times 1 black. That's what it's called, and it is exactly what you think it is. It's one pixel, so we can take that 1 pixel and stretch it when we go ahead and try to apply that on top of everything we have in our game room. So and I've gone ahead and let me find that CPP file. Where is that one? Game initialization room here. I've also added that to the engine level sprite allocation. So we have a lot of sprites going on so far, right? Main menu background, main menu button, fonts and pixels and all the stuff I need specifically for the game. And so I have that going for me. So let's take a look at the fade in object. And so again, all these objects work in conjunction with one another, right? It's like a race condition kind of thing. It's kind of like chaos in a way, where everyone's just doing their own thing, and then sometimes collisions occur and sometimes they don't, and stuff like that. And so it's like I call it a sea of objects when we're talking about like this. What is the reality of this room? What is the reality of any large program these days? Is just a sea of objects of different types, all trying to communicate together, and you can see where the complexity of that can fall in. So I have the fade in object. It's just an object, just like every other object. It has a constructor, and I took over the step event. That's all we need to make this thing work. You can already see the code here. And so all I'm doing up front is saying, okay, I'm going to set this thing at 0, 0 because I want the whole screen to fade in and fade out. I'm going to use that 1 black pixel, and it's and I guess I don't need the 1, 1, right? I can get rid of that and not worry about it because those are default parameters anyway. And so I just need to take that 1 by 1 black image and scale it to fit my entire window. I don't need to do any more, right? I don't want to draw any more than it has to. So I just took the game, get the instance to get the window resolution, and give me the X and give me the Y and set that. So now the thing is stretched out. And I'm also setting the depth of 100, so it's basically drawn on top of absolutely everything else. Makes sense, right? Okay, but that's all I'm doing is just to get things going, because once I've set the scale and I set the depth, that's a one-time only deal. I don't have to do anything anymore with that. I can leave it alone. And the step event is pretty simple, because just think, we haven't thought about transparencies so much. We haven't really talked about that. However, in this case, because I want this thing to fade in, basically it starts as a black image, so I want this thing to be fully opaque I want this thing to be fully visible when it starts, so I don't have to do any extra work to set its alpha quantity, because there's a red, a blue, a red, a green, a blue, and an alpha quantity. That makes up the 32 bits of what a color value can be. And so the alpha value can stay as it is because it's 255 when it starts. Some systems use between 0 and 1. This system uses a byte from 0 to 255. But all I'm doing on a step-by-step basis is just going, hey, get me the current tinting of the sprite. And then from there, if I can subtract 2, subtract 2. And if not, let's just set it to 0 so it's completely invisible, and then set the color back so it is, so you can see it. And so over a frame, on a frame-by-frame basis, you lose 2 pixels, or 1% over every game frame, because of a little less than 1%, 0.8%, and of 0.8% of the opacity of the image every game frame. So it starts black and it will turn clear over time. And if you want to speed this up, if I remember right, it probably could use a little extra. And so I can't run it now because it's going to crash on me because of the third part of our discussion here. But you can see that this will work. It'll reduce the alpha if it can. Otherwise, it sets it to 0 just to make sure that I can't. Because if I overflow it, or in this case underflow it, it'll go right back to being completely visible, right? Because if I take 2 and subtract 3, -1 is max int, or max byte. Okay, so this is the simple one of the two. This is the fade in. The fade out is a little more complicated because the fade out, like how would I know when the fade out fade to black, right? That's what fade out is, right? Fade to black. How do I know when I hit that black component so I can change rooms? Because that's the whole point of this, right? Is to basically show something, have it turn black, change rooms, and then have it fade in to show the new room. That's a cool little effect. That's what we're trying to do. So this adds, there's a little bit more to it. So here's the fade out and change room.h. And let me pull in the .cpp and talk about that. Where is it? And it's all engine code, so this goes over. Okay. So again, it's not too much more, but it's just a little bit more. So this time around, I'm passing in a room. Like, what is the next room going to be? Because I'm setting up this object to fade out. And then again, this object is going to be the one that actually goes ahead and changes the room, not anything else. Like, because right now, like you click the button, we're going to have to fix that up too. You click the button, it'll create this object, and then the object will be the thing that actually changes the room instead of directly changing the room as we're currently doing. So I need to pass in a new room, and that's the only thing I need to pass along. It does not need a destructor because we are not the ones going to be generating and dynamically generating this pointer to the room. That's going to be generated outside of this object, and it's still going to be the room's objective to worry about the memory management of the rooms that it's maintaining. So we don't have to necessarily worry about that. And I have to maintain the pointer to this that's coming in, and I have to still override the step event. So same thing goes, I'm scaling, I'm depth ordering, and I'm getting the color so I can set it to 0, because this is the reverse. I'm trying to go from completely clear to completely opaque, complete black screen. So I need to set the alpha to 0 to start. Otherwise, it's the complete same stuff. I'm going to be adding to the alpha value. And basically, whenever the alpha value gets very close to completely max see-through, or I'm sorry, completely max black, dark, opaque, then I'm going to say, okay, change the room to the room that I'm talking about here, right? So I can get rid of this. So the next room gets saved, and then we're adding. The code is almost identical to previous, just in reverse when it comes to that. And then instead of just setting it equal to 0 like I did before, you go up, nope, now I can change the room. And so when I run this game with these two objects in play, let me just show you what the oopsie of this is. Okay, everything up. Actually, let me start this over again. So you can actually see if I can do it real fast. There it is. It's hard for me to drag it over, but it actually does fade in. But when I say quit game, quits the game, of course. But here we go. You can see it come in there. Or maybe not. Never mind. But when I click level 1, I get a break, and I go, oh shoot, what the heck happened here? For every object in my scene step, and so this is one of those cool things of the standard template library and of vectors in general. And so I don't have anything open per se to this, but one of the rules of basically across the board when it comes to the way collections work, especially when a vector is, if you've seen previous videos, I have videos that show how to create a vector class, how to use a vector class, and like create our own custom and stuff like that. You can see, but what happens every time I add, and that's what I did here, right? Let me go back. Yeah, I haven't talked about it yet, but let me show the code for main menu room. Here we go. So I fixed up the code here to now handle, oh my goodness, instance. So like when I actually click on the button, remember all this stuff that tells me call this function when I click the button? So what happens is I still create the new room, but notice how it's tied into the fade out and change room object. So this time around, I'm saying, this was easy. I didn't change this. It just says quit the game. But this says, oh, get the game so I can get the room, so I can put an object into the room of this type, fade out and change room, and when the time comes, change into the Boxxle room of my choice. Level 1, level 2, level 3, and we still have, this is the final video is using this number so we can have a text file that maintains the best scores for everything. And so this is how I took over this. So I'm adding an instance to the room. That's what this is. And I'm adding this instance to the room while the game is being played, right? Because while the room is active, as opposed to everything else is generated in the constructor of the room. So everything is generated up front. These are being, if you want to think, dynamically generated as the room is progressing and things are going on inside of my room. So this is how I set up the main room. And then what else is there? But the other room is the Boxxle game room. And so the button, and I just changed it like we did before here, and it just said, okay, if I click that main menu button, return to main menu button inside of the actual gameplay, what happens here is that it sets up and it adds to the current room, and it adds an object of that type, which returns me back to the main menu. And so the main menu itself, again, has both. Where is it here? Yeah, so let's say that was the fade out stuff, but you see down here, I also create a fade in. And I also create a fade in the Boxxle game room down here at the end. So the fade in is not the problem. The problem is actually with the fade out. And it's because the fade out is being generated dynamically as the room is actually being played. And so let me go back. Let's just go hit that error one more time. Now there's the description of that. So what is the actual problem? The problem is that the pointers and the iterators are being invalidated because a vector, of course, has a size, has a capacity, has all of these things, right? So, and I wish I could find a way to, maybe I can. Let me see. Let me put a change in, change out. Now where is the room? Main menu room. Here we go. So if I click on level 1, let me do this. Okay, so main level 1, click this, F10, F10, let's see, callback, let's see, where does this take me? Okay, so here we are. We're in the step event, and so now there's 7 objects in my scene. There was 6 a second ago, but the iterators, this is using, what is this actually doing under the hood? We don't 100% know, but it's most likely using iterators of some sort to be able to progress through every object in my scene. But the problem is that those iterators, those pointers, are invalidated because when I went a second ago and added this new object, this new fade out object to the scene, what looks like what happened was, because I've hit the capacity of my vector, what happens when that happens, I create a new bigger one to hold more stuff, copy everything over, and then add the new object into the new area and delete everything down here. And so these iterators, because I haven't gotten out of this for loop yet, are pointing to data that's been completely given back to the operating system. And so because of that fact, when it goes to try to access that thing, access is denied. Maybe not for that specific object, but the last one in the list will be, because exactly for that exact reason, because the last object isn't part of the deal. And because that object isn't inside, whatever, it just doesn't work. This is an access read violation because I'm basically trying to access something that doesn't exist. So the Band-Aid on this is just to use an integer indexing. Int I equals 0, I is less than objects.size plus I. And then instead of O, just say objects, of course, just use the array notation. And so the reason why this works out is because we're no longer using iterators, we're just using index values. And so while I'm going and doing things, I'm pushing to the back of this new vector to put this new information in, which it doesn't matter necessarily where it goes, because at any moment I say, give me the first, give me the second, give me the ninth element. It's not an iterator. This will just figure out what memory address that is, even if it's been moved around a little bit, because under the hood, everything's being maintained for us, and it will find the correct object to apply the correct step function. So again, this is just a Band-Aid, because in the future, what would happen if I want to add a delete function, right? Now things get even trickier, because if I just blindly delete the thing in the middle of a game frame while I'm in an object, well, what happens if that object came before me? What happens if that object came after me? There's a lot of things that can go wrong with order of operations, just like this was just an order of operations error. And so I would say in the future, what I would do if I was going to make this a much more professional engine is the room would maintain a vector of objects that have been created in the given game frame, and a list of objects that that want to be destroyed in the given game frame. Wait until everybody's processed and everyone's gone through their step event, and then go ahead and add and subtract from that vector of objects, so that there's no issues with this kind of thing. Because GameMaker adds objects on the spot, and that can actually cause a problem, because if I'm adding an object to my scene and they go, oh, hey, let's do the draw event on this, sometimes you can actually crash your machine, because like there are variables in your draw event that don't exist yet because they haven't been created yet in the create event, which will happen in the next game frame. As confusing as that sounds, it sucks, because GameMaker kind of has a race condition that you lose every single time, or not every single time, but half the time, based on where this object is in my vector. And so it can be a problem. So again, Band-Aid solution is just to access the array elements without using a range-based for loop. I don't have to worry about it in the destructor, because nothing's going to interrupt the destructor while I'm deleting this and clearing out. And then same for draw. As long as it's one of those question mark things. As long as you don't put any instance creates or instance destroys inside of a draw event, which you should never do. All the code that's what a step event is for creating and destroying. Drawing is meant for just drawing things. What is my visual representation of this object at the current time? And nothing else needs to worry. And so with that one fix, and now you'll be able to see things. Now I can actually play the game. So there's the breakpoint. Oh, that scared the hell out of me. Let's try this one more time. Like, oh no, I told you it was working, but it didn't. No, it's working. There's my fade out. There's my fade in. And now everything else works accordingly. And so when I click the main menu, it brings me back fade out, fade in. You can finally see the fade in. And I can try it for all three levels if you want to. And I disabled the escape key, so all I could do is hit main menu, go back, level 3. There we go. They say every level is different, like it's supposed to be. Main menu takes me back, and now I can quit the game, and then the game is over. I don't have any. The quit game is an immediate thing. I don't have anything, because then I'd have to write more code to create like a quit game room or something like that. It's just not worth it. If you want to quit, who am I to do anything but just immediately exit out of the game frame? You can always come back another time. I'm not one of those, are you sure you want to quit? I'm fine. There's other things to do in this life. Boxxle isn't the most exciting game. I get it. Come back if you want. That's fine. So that covers what I wanted to cover here for this video. And so we have fade in, fade out. So now all we have left to do, because the game is working, right? Without going into too much detail. So you can stop now if I'm boring you, or boring you more than I normally bore you. But you can see I can now beat the level. Oh yeah, I never added anything to return back to the main menu when you win, right? So that's the last video, is to basically handle the winning condition, put something up on the screen that goes, hey, you won. I'm going to fix up my level editor here and make the levels actually some real levels to play for the next video. You should probably too. But here, the only reason this doesn't work for me is because I had a breakpoint in there earlier. So now, but we did prove that this is a winning condition, that the computer knows, that our program knows that this is a winning condition. And so now it's just a matter of filling in the details of how to handle that situation. So you can imagine We're going to put something up on the screen that says you beat the level, and maybe if you have the best scores, tell them, hey, you have a new best record, and then return them back to the main menu. And then the buttons in the main menu also will put on there, what is my best score? So I'm saying that just a couple last things to do, and we really, really, really are done with this game. So as always, swardb@cod.edu. Get a hold of me there if you have any email questions, or comment down below if you have any questions that way. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.